They were two lonely souls who met online.
They started video chatting, and one thing led to another.
They had an instant connection, and within just a few months of meeting, they were married.
But their romance would be consumed by tragedy.
I jumped out of bed, looked out the window, and all I could see was fire.
We heard that they found a body.
Was it an unfortunate accident?
There was a wood stove in the basement that folks had said didn't work very well.
Or had a deadly mix of desire and desperation sparked a cold-blooded betrayal?
Who's the mastermind? Who's got the most to gain?
You have to tell us the truth. You have to.
I've been telling you the truth.
The story isn't adding up.
They were working together to do this. They're evil people.
There's no question that they were volatile together. They were accomplices in the truest sense. Without being a couple, this murder doesn't happen.
Wayland, New York, February 15th, 2016. At 4:40 a.m., a U.S. postal worker is out on his morning delivery route when he comes across a disturbing scene.
911 center.
I just come up on a house and it's completely engulfed in flames.
Fire trucks are quickly dispatched to the scene.
It's a rural location, so it takes a little while for firefighters and EMTs to get there.
The structure was already caving in upon their arrival.
While firefighters try to control the flames, they recognize the home as belonging to local handyman, 60-year-old David Odell.
It being a small community, the volunteer firemen know folks. Everybody knows each other.
There was a vehicle in the driveway. The presumption was made that he very well could have been inside.
I noticed a huge orange glow at the window, and I looked right at David's house, and I went, oh my God, David's house is gone.
I jumped out of bed, looked out the window, and all I could see was fire. Those flames looked like they were 50 feet high. And threw our clothes on, sprinted down the road.
As firefighters battle the flames and concerned neighbors gather, everyone has the same question on their mind. Was David home when the fire started?
The concern was that the homeowner, David, was in the home.
I was angry at the arrogance that people have to pick on somebody who was trusting, was faithful, and to see what they had, what little they had, and then decide it was worth killing them to try and get away with it, to make money off somebody. I'm still flabbergasted by it. You know, I don't believe people can treat each other. You never think that's going to hit close to home. You read about it, you see it on television, but you never realize it can hit home. I felt that justice was served, that they were going to get what they had coming to them. And it was mixed emotions. You know, I can't say I was happy about it because I knew that wouldn't bring Dave back. You know, nothing I was ever going to say or ever feel would bring Dave back. And really I wrestled with that for a year or two because I finally realized that their greed, Joe and Iryn's greed, and the stupidity of how they pursued it, not only ruined our friendship, our Dave's family, but it also really screwed up Joe's family. It also had a major impact on them. And now, you know, and Joe's whole side of the family. You know, one of the guys in my Bible study I found was a relative of the family. And at that point, I really couldn't talk about the incident with anybody. And he brought it up, requesting prayer for this guy. And the more he said about it, the more I realized what he was talking about. But I've come to peace with that. I can say that I pray for them. I pray for their kids and for their family too, because both families are hurting. Both families have been grieved by that whole situation, and I just hope that they can find peace, and I hope that Joe and Irene can come to grips with what they did and be forgiven.
I've never seen a case in my career, at least certainly not a murder case, where, but for their relationship, this murder would not have happened. I don't think that Joe had the sort of the smarts or even the will to make this happen. He was an emotional mess when he was dealing with these folks. Irene was stone cold. I don't think Irene had the physical capacity to make it happen. So sort of between the two of them, that they are the quintessential killer couple. They work together, and without being a couple, this murder doesn't happen. In this case, law enforcement did absolutely everything we could possibly do to bring justice for David Odell and let us find out what happened. And so many times in a death, this started out with a black hole in the ground and not knowing what happened. And if the state police hadn't taken the next step, if the investigators, Investigator Cork and Senior Investigator Eaton, and the rest, and our fire investigators and all those folks hadn't said, you know what, we need to look harder for David Odell to find out what happened, then they never would have known. And they would have wondered forever how or why, or they would have blamed, just like they sort of did at the beginning, they would have blamed David for his own death. So I think that there is, the effort that went into this case was tremendous. The number of investigators, I think at times there were 30 or so folks working this case. We brought in experts from across the country. The state police, we used all of their laboratory resources and were able to bring to bear a case that was about as perfect a murder case as you can put together. And the Odells know something that very few victims' families do, and they know exactly what happened. And I think that's the best we can hope for them, is to let them know what happened and to let them know that what justice we can serve was served.
When I look back at who Irene and her husband are, people have to go to a very dark place to plan and conspire. I mean, she had admitted that they had been planning to kill Mr. Odell for more than a month. To get up every morning with that thought in your head and to plan to go forward with this every day and to start selling the alibis and building the deceit, as weak as it was, because we could see through it, there is a very interesting place where I think the mind goes to accept that as being normal.
In the end, the judge found that they were both equally culpable in the situation. Joe may have had a higher degree of charge, but it took two people to make this happen, and they were both equally culpable. I can't tell you who drove this plan more, Joe or Irene. It's equally possible that either one was the mastermind. I think that without each other, this was a symbiotic relationship. They were accomplices in the truest sense, and that they both plotted and they both killed David Odell, and they should both be equally responsible.
By me, I thought they should have the death penalty, but it didn't work. Or they should put them two in their house and let them do what they did to him. because it wasn't right. You know, but I guess they're getting their justice. If I'm still alive, well, like Phil said, when he comes up for parole, I'll be there.
Miserable bastards that should spend the rest of their life in a cage like the animals that they are. And that's exactly how I feel about it. I mean, they've got to be an animal to do what they did. You know, because he didn't deserve, and nobody deserves anything like that. You know, and especially to be burnt up alive. You know, how could anybody even imagine doing something like that? What was going through their heads? You know, to be able to do something like that. You know, I just can't comprehend it at all.
Dave was, I think, sometimes intimidated when he would go to places, and people would treat him less than nice. And but underneath all those clothes, there was a true friend, a warm heart that beat, and I think that that's what I'll always remember.
He was a nice guy. Like I explained before, we kind of kept track of each other. They took care of our animals. We took care of feeding him when he needed a warm meal. If he ran out of food in his freezer or refrigerator, we gave him some. Oftentimes had him stop down and eat on the picnic table in the back with us and have a nice warm cup of coffee. In the winter is when we were more concerned about him. Just because he was alone and wanted to make sure he had enough food. But I just feel bad we don't have our friend.